You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
This makes my nipples hard.
Hey there, thank you for joining us for this episode. Today, Paul and I are going to revisit a subject that was talked about on episode, believe it or not, guys, episode 50 of the podcast, way back in, get this, 2019, because this podcast has been going for a while, and I bet you're dying to know what it is, and you're quickly Googling what was episode 50. You just need to know. Well, I'll tell you, it's Blade Runner, because I had never played it. And I'm going to say the reason I'd never played it, because I just sussed out this mystery with my dad literally 2 days ago, because we have the guide, like not the guide, but the instruction manual for this game. And I say to my dad, hey, Dad, didn't we have this game when I was younger? I don't really remember it. And he's like, no, I don't think so. Anyways, yesterday, having dinner, and my dad's like, okay, we did have the game. And what happened was it was on multiple CDs, and we were just in the middle of upgrading our computer. We couldn't get it to run properly. We sort of got it to run. We upgraded the computer, and then something happened and we lost track of it, and we just never played it. So it ran through the family. It had its chance. It missed its turn, and then we missed it completely. So all I was left is the relic of a book. And my dad said he actually traded the box and the game in like ages and ages ago, probably for like Diablo or something. Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Hey, good. I'm doing awesome. That was a normal sized intro, basically.
And you didn't even make fun of me. This is good. Until after. No, very nice.
That was a lovely little tale. I was ready to jump in and give your dad a voice, but it would have been kind of like an old man offensive kind of thing. And I don't want to do that to him. He's probably a good guy. So
probably. Well, it depends on if he's a replicant or not.
Are we going to do that all episode? Because
Well, it's relevant because when you play this game, you actually don't know. You don't know who's a replicant. You don't know who isn't a replicant. And just because you played the game last week, you play it again this week, you still don't necessarily know. And that's kind of a cool thing about this game.
It is. It ties into the movie, to the book as well, to the entire theme of Blade Runner, just tremendously well. It's the more I dive into this game, the more I really think about it. It's one of the more like just genius acts in gaming in general, like how they pulled this off and how they integrated the ideas of and themes of the movie or into the book is incredible. I don't know. Okay, hold on. Let's back up a little bit. I think we're bringing some nervous energy into this. How's everybody doing? Great. Look, we're gonna talk about Blade Runner, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the book, not really, a little bit about the movie, sort of, and a lot about the game. Those are the measurements. Those are the ingredients of the episode. And who knows, maybe even both movies. I'm a fanatic of Blade Runner. I'll be representing the fanatical side of it. Anna is just like, she likes neon colors and rain and had a fun time playing the game. That's right. Is that more or less where you're coming from? You didn't like grow
and
up
I watched
like on
the movie.
Blade Runner. How many times did you watch the movie?
I didn't grow up on it.
Right.
Oh no. Yeah, no, fair enough. Once. I'm sorry.
Told you I'm gonna have to represent the fandom. We are a strict and unforgiving people.
Well, the game is a tiny.
Sorry.
You just want to know. Well, the game is a teeny bit different than the movie. Like, as far as I can gather, like, it seems like the game takes place after the movie ends, I would say. What do you think?
That it canonically takes place at the same time, in parallel from it. Yeah. Again, I'm here with the facts. I'm not fucking around. Nothing about this episode is going to be fun for anybody.
No, I'm not having fun at all. You're right. This is absolutely
fantastic.
No fun.
We're like a fighting couple on the way home from an expensive vacation.
A very expensive, like how, I don't even know. Do you know what the budget was for this game? Because it's freaking beautiful. Like there's a lot of rooms where you don't even have to do anything. You're just literally running through it and it is beautiful. You want to stop, you're in awe, you're looking around, you're just like, whoa, how did they do this?
It is absolutely, it's such a good looking game that I would say it looks like like for it still holds up is all I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
There's by the
It
way,
does.
we're not going to be covering the remaster very much because neither of us played it
No.
or have experience with it. I've only heard like all the train wreck like details surrounding its development, and like I know better than to be harsh on the devs without knowing their side of the story or anything going on. All I'll say, and this is a dickish thing to say, it's my only thing to say on it, so I gotta say the thing. I don't know how they took on the project without first confirming that they would have access to the source material of the game. And from
Mhm.
what I understood during the development of the remaster, like at some point, like they realized they weren't going to be able to get it, and it's just like, really, like you didn't make sure that you could get the source files before you started. Like, how did that happen? I don't know how that, but I don't know their side of the story. Maybe they were told that they would. Like, there's a plenty of circumstances to which they come out making me look foolish for even beginning to talk shit. But let's be honest, it's fun to be gossipy. So long story short, the remaster was a bit of a train wreck. It did come out. Um, but we're not going to cover it because we didn't play it. And I guess my other point that got me into this is that this game didn't need one. It holds up really really well. Like it looks like an indie studio's level of 3D game art right now. You know, like yeah, like
Mhm.
AAA is on another level. Like all the your Red Dead's and Spider Man's like that's like the what would you say, like the forefront of where we're at right now with like 3D art and everything. But like indie studios, when they're doing 3D, like it doesn't look a lot better than this. And
Mhm.
this was put up I think slightly before Grim Fandango.
It was. And I just found out the budget of it was $10 million. And I don't know what the budget of the remake was, but I have a feeling it wasn't $10 million.
Wow. No, absolutely not. I'm not sure they even had a budget. I don't know. I mean, yeah. All right. Anyway, I don't, because now I'm just gonna start feeling bad and retracting on everything I said about the remaster. But I don't know. I'm sure they're great. They're probably great people. I'm just doubting whether I want to keep any of this in the episode at this point in time.
And everybody says, well, then why did we just listen to it?
Or did they? Was it in there? It was, because it's, oh shit. You know what? You guys did hear that because I just remembered it's Tuesday and we have to immediately release this
Yeah.
episode. Look, I may have been a little harsh back there. Okay. Let me do a politician like backpedal on everything. I don't know who that past guy was. Frankly, he was hangry. Since then, I've had a few saltines. I'm feeling a lot better. It was my Ambien, whatever. Back to the game. So Anna, how was your? Tell me your first experience with the game, which you played this week.
Right. Well,
First
I mean,
impression. Sorry, that's like an
first
overwhelming question.
impression.
Like, tell me everything you feel about it now. Just yeah, what are your first impressions? You had just watched the movie for the first time about a year ago ish. You know,
Mhm.
say words at that.
Well, it was a little overwhelming because there's like all these, you have to not only choose who to talk to and what to say, but you have to choose how to talk to them and what to say. There was a lot of like, not necessarily intuitive learning. Like you have to figure out how to question the replicants using the white conf. You have to figure out how to work the machines where you're zeroing in. Which, by the way, I really liked that. You get to look at pictures of a screen that was say on a security camera, and you get to zero in on what could be important details. And it's trippy because it'll turn the camera to show you stuff that's not actually in the picture. So you'll know you have it right when it starts doing this. It backs up and then it's like click, 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 click. And you see it turn the image a little bit and you're like, oh, that's the sweet spot. So, I mean, it was overwhelming in the same way that I found the Gabriel Knight menu a little bit overwhelming. There was just sort of a lot for me to wrap my head around to understand the dynamics of how the game worked. But then I was really impressed with just basically the layout. It was a little bit like hard to find the hot spots. Like, even if you're running and doing the cheat where you're running your mouse all over the screen to try to make it light up in green, sometimes the hot spots were so tiny and detailed it was hard to find a little bit.
Mm.
Or like, I didn't know how to leave a room. I got so caught at the end because I couldn't figure out how to like leave and go where I was supposed to go after I did what I did at the end. Beautiful though, freaking beautiful. I was so excited to play it, and I put probably about 6.5 hours into going through it. And I can see I have to play it all over again because, as I'll get into as the episode goes on, I'm pretty sure I didn't necessarily get a good ending.
Right. Well, I was telling Anna before we recorded that I regretted the circumstances surrounding this episode because I picked Blade Runner to do, and I was like, no matter how good the episode goes, I'm still gonna regret it. And the reason, and then I shut us up. I'm like, stop. We're talking about episode stuff. Let's save it for the thing. Now we're on the thing, and I'm saying the thing for the thing. The reason I regret it is because when we play games for episodes, it changes the way you engage with a game a little bit because
Mhm.
it doesn't make it feel like homework because that's unfair. That's like too hard in the general direction that it is in, which is more obligational and less, I don't know, leisurely. But it's like I could sense when you were playing this game just from like you messaging me and stuff like that. I'm like, she's very overwhelmed by this game, and I really do feel like that's a consequence, or I guess a more result of playing it in preparation for an episode, because I could see you like trying to track what's going on and like take notes and like have a timeline to talk about, and it's just not, it's not a great game for that because there's way too many different outcomes and circumstances and versions of gameplay, and we'll kind of get into how and why that exactly is, or better define that in a second. But anyways, yeah, it's a rough game to go into if you're trying to like lasso it, if you're trying to like get a grasp on it. It's really hard because it's constantly changing. There's really, as you realize, there's no, or as you said to me, there's no good like walkthroughs for it because there's so many different outcomes and everything like that. So it can be an overwhelming game if you're trying to like conquer it as opposed to just like wander through it. And I think it's probably the first open world adventure game as far as like
Mhm.
legitimately nonlinear.
Yeah, I guess it is actually because you can, like, I'm trying to think, the like, in a way, Conquest of the Longbow is a little bit
Mm,
non-linear, but not as much as Blade Runner.
right. You're right. And I saw, okay, I guess to clarify for the listeners, what they basically did here was not like on a, you know, low level like system operating explanation kind of level, but the general idea, the spirit of what they did here was uh they programmed the characters in the game, the NPCs in the game, in such a way that you're not necessarily sure if they're going to be replicants or humans or not, which is
Right.
beautiful. It ties in harmoniously with the themes of the movie and to a slightly lesser degree the book, which is, you know, what does it mean to be human, and it handles it in such a way where the NPCs kind of based on a single, let's say, reaction to one of your actions, the NPC will decide what to do in an AI sense. Like I think they called it early AI, in that it,
Hmm.
you know, it has a generated sense of how it reacts, and then that reaction kind of cascades into another um, branch of possible reactions, and then that follows another branch, and you end up with this whatever a matrix is of different possibilities.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it. It's kind of like, everything is scripted. Like, it is all pre-programmed dialogue trees. The character responses are kind of pre-programmed, but what you do, like if you push them too far, they might get a little bit more hostile or suspicious if they're a replicant. Maybe if they were a human, they'd be a little bit more friendly, but it's totally not random. Everything, the pre-programmed dialogue choices and the ones you get are totally influenced by like everything we've done in the game. It's like who we've interacted, who we've retired, kept alive, and it just like it's almost like a choose your own adventure game in a way,
Right.
because it's like every choice you make, you turn to a different page and it branches off in a completely different direction. So, like, even the personality traits are different. Like, if it was a replicant, they might be a little bit more hostile acting. But if they're a human being, it might go a little bit more in the other direction. And it's kind of interesting because you don't even know where your empathy is supposed to lay with or who. Like, there's a lot of blurred lines, which I think going back to the original book, it was meant to be that way. Everything about it is just that little bit ambiguous.
Right. It's yeah, it's fitting to the movie. Well, okay, the movie obviously ends, and I say obviously to maybe not just the fandom. I mean, it is. I actually does. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to abandon that because it really doesn't matter who does or does not know. But basically, the ending is possibly implies that the lead protagonist in the film, Deckard, not in the game, in the film,
Mm-hmm.
Deckard, is indeed himself a replicant. It hints at it. It kind of implies it, and there's a bunch of rather kind of fun rabbit holes to go down to as far as like people believe that like Ridley Scott kind of wanted him to be a replicant, and Harrison Ford I think
Mm-hmm.
was acting as if he wasn't a replicant, and um, they really they have fun playing with that, and they extend that playfulness as far as like whether or not Deckard himself was a replicant into the 2049 film, which in my opinion is the greatest sequel of all time. It's like maybe the only time a sequel that isn't like part of a planned trilogy or like necessarily even a planned sequel just knocks it out of the park and is to I think in a lot of people's eyes even better than the original. I would say maybe not quite that far, but it's an amazing film, and it carries on these themes. And the game, what I'm trying to say, sorry to tie it back into the game here with McCoy, who's the game's Deckard, also
Mm-hmm.
plays with that too by just straight up giving you different endings where he is or isn't a replicant, so you get to kind of experience what it might have looked like for him to for your whole gameplay for you yourself to have been a replicant, and then you could play the game again and you're genuinely not in that version of the gameplay, like not like implied or not like written to the story of the gameplay that you get. Sometimes your gameplay you will be a replicant and sometimes you won't. So I think that's really cool. It's a really nice way to like harmoniously intermingle the ideas of the film into the ideas of the game.
Well, there's this time where you rattle a cage and you get a scorpion bite and you don't die, and there's that suspicious moment. And as far as I can see, I believe that seems to be the case, no matter how many times you play it or any other factors. I'm pretty sure you always don't die when the scorpion bites you.
Right.
Have you encountered anything different than that, or is it always the same when you play it too?
I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
not.
it's like on the dragonfly lady's countertop, there's this
Right.
scorpion there and it stings you and you're like, ah, and then she's like, oh, you should be dead right now. And you're like, I'm not, but I feel kind of sick. And then that's it. And that's like the one kind of a feeling of, oh, who are you really? Like right there in the middle of the game.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember not getting it. So you know what I mean. I wouldn't be able to confirm like for sure. Like no, I definitely didn't get it one of my playthroughs. I remember it happening, but I'm
Mhm.
not sure. Yeah, I don't even know. I guess on a nerdier level, like would a replicant not die from a scorpion bite because they are? I mean, great. Yeah, they are like androids, but it makes you wonder if
Yeah, they're superhuman, right? Kind of.
yeah, to what degree? Like, is that I guess that's the argument out of it, where it's like, well, replicant might have died too, but there's plenty of. I mean, that's the beauty of
Hmm.
the ambiguous nature of that part in the game with the scorpion, where it's like you could kind of just argue, you could pick a side and argue for it or steelman it pretty easily. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, anyway, so it's a beautiful game. It was made in a really unique way at the time, right? It wasn't made with polygons, which is why it looks so good for 1997. Um, I think it still maintained just looks so good, kind of period. Um, but yeah, for the time, it was just way ahead of the ball. I mean, credit to the other studios, people pursuing 3D like Sierra and LucasArts with Grim Fandango and much harder to look at Gabriel Knight 3 because they had to be they were they were trailblazing. You had to just get in
Hmm.
there with the machete and start figuring that stuff out. So of course it's great that they did, but Blade Runner was you know in a sense like they forego like the forward movement of the entire industry for a better looking game then and now by choosing to use voxels. And I think we have some interesting interpretations of that. So um, once the police are done with There. Okay. Yeah. What do you got with voxels? What are your thoughts on it?
Right. So I was, from my research and what I can see about it, it was technically made with something called slice animations or voxels plus. So instead of true voxels, 3D models were sliced into horizontal sections, and then they were kind of manipulated and animated to create the illusion of 3D movement, especially for the characters. So it's like in true voxels, individual voxels can be changed or manipulated within the 3D space. So it's kind of like a little bit more dynamic, but with pre-rendered slices, it kind of limits the flexibility just a touch. The characters could only rotate on a single axis, so like vertically, due to the way the slices were animated. So it's still 3D and it's still voxel based, but it's a little bit different than what would be typically considered a voxel game.
So do we understand that?
Let's put it this way. It's kind of like voxels are tiny cubes that build up the world. Instead of individual cubes, they stacked these slices together like one on. I'm moving my hands in a stacking. It's like I don't know. You could compare it to a flip book, but in 3D. So it rendered the characters on a 3D model, but the computers weren't really able to handle it at the time, like the true 3D, because it was really early in technology, and that's why you do have that limit in characters' movement. So as you notice, he can walk up and he can walk over, but he can't walk over there. He can only walk along very specific points. You could really turn sideways, but you couldn't flip it in the same way.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm kind of just nodding and smiling because I'm not going to pretend I really understood a lot of that. It's very like when you bring up slicing, like okay, here's what I understand of voxels is that it's if you were to shrink Minecraft, that's voxels. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of you build a 3D environment or a 3D looking environment on cubes instead of polygons. So that's maybe a good first
Mm-hmm.
differential there. We're using cubes instead of polygons. Check. So it's immediately a little bit easier to understand as far as like 3D pixels are concerned. So instead of a pixel, it's a cube. Um, and then that means it can be organized on a 3D, I guess, grid like
Mm-hmm.
Minecraft. So if you were to like shrink all the cubes in Minecraft, you have voxels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Does
kind
that
of
track?
like it does. It's like take a toy action figure and it can only turn its body at the waist, but not the knees and elbows. Is kind of how I visualize it
Right.
because of the layering. Because it's very specific spaces and time. And again, it is really a type of a compression that is to deal with the limited graphics. Because if they tried to do that and made it all 3D voxel based and all encompassing, and you could go anywhere, it would have taken up way more than the 3 CDs it was already on.
Right. Right. Yeah, I guess that bleeds into the movement factor, but I'm still just trying to understand,
Yeah.
I guess, the basic visual idea of it. Like I can say they couldn't use sprites because sprites wouldn't be dynamic. So if you had like the neon lighting in this game, which is part of its allure, you see the lighting reflect off of McCoy, off your character.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't do that with
Mm-hmm.
the sprite. The sprite wouldn't be dynamic like that, especially at the time. And we won't get into asterisk marks. I'm just going to generalize for
Mm-hmm.
so we can maybe three of us can walk away from this understanding what's going on. Um, but basically, they couldn't use sprites because the question becomes quickly, it's like, why are they bothering with this? And that's the answer to that. They're bothering with the voxels because A, polygons looked horrible at this time,
Mm-hmm.
and B, sprites weren't dynamic, so the lighting wouldn't have reflected off of them, and they were right to really want that for this game. Like such a huge part of Blade Runner is the atmosphere and just the kind of rain soaked streets and the neon lights, bleeding kind of glowing gradients into the rain and mist. Like it's such a big part of
Mm,
it.
so
You want to see
beautiful.
characters disappear into the fog, and if you had a
Mhm,
sprite, as soon as you put light behind a sprite, you get a real jarring sense for how paper flat it is. um so that was their reasoning for
which
doing
is
all this.
exactly
Yeah, go ahead.
that's exactly it. It's like thin horizontal slices of character, and then they're stacked together, and then they're animated, and it creates like an illusion of 3D movement.
Right. That's good. That's as good as we can do, people.
Mhm.
That's what
I
we.
mean, for both of us, that's pretty good in general. I mean, come on, that's
Yeah,
not
no.
bad.
Definitely. No,
Well done, us. Well done.
we sound like people who read something and understood 20% of it. So that's something.
That's what it is. I read it yesterday and I'm trying to spit it out to you.
Okay, so the mechanics of this game, I wanted to ask you about what, like, your thought, because I guess I'll get my motivations out of the way through my POV, which was I didn't find this to be like a very puzzly game in a good way. I think that's a good way for any adventure game fans, because none of us, it turns out, like puzzles very much. Like, we want them well integrated and part of the story and kind of flowy, and like, if I was him, I would have to do this now anyway. Like, that's ideal puzzle stuff right there. And this game, I think, really nailed it. But I get from you a bit of more of a frustrating take on things. So I'll just end on this. I'll say I can't really recall any adventure puzzles. There were moments with just 97 era mechanics, like shooting the rat and stuff like that, which was a little like clunky, but I don't remember
Mhm.
anything being like moon logic-y. And then to add to that, I just want to quickly add that working with the Esper machine, which Anna, you touched on earlier, with the, enhance lower quadrant, you sit there like Harrison Ford, all cold and unloving, yelling at the machine what to do, and it's makes awesome sound effects. They nailed it. They nailed the grid, like the delay on, like in the movie, you're using these late 70s CRT screens, and the way this Esper machine moves is very, for people that haven't seen it and need a visual, kind of like sonar, where it's like it really fades in and fades out, and the blip on the sonar screen appears in the next quadrant before the other one's fully gone away, right? Because of that
Mhm.
bleeding CRT, glow. And the Esper machine, man, the game just nailed that. It looks so good. And the Esper machine was so much fun to play with, to enhance images and get them to clean the images up. And the game utilizes like chunky pixel art into like 3D models at that point, so they pick the images, like, really do clean up. They go from like Sunny Bond's AGI to, like, late 90s 3D. And it looks amazing. And I thought the Esper machine combined with the Voight comp was a ton of fun. And so let me toss this back
Mhm.
to you. What was your overall take on the puzzles?
To me, the game was kind of a combination of, like, there's investigation. You're gathering clues, you're interviewing people, you're analyzing information, you're deciding who to kill, because there is no thing saying kill this person or don't. Like, there's a random bum. I think you can kill him for little to no consequence
Wow,
near the
you
beginning of
absolute
the game
serial
when you're
killer.
chasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you totally can. Yeah, no, and it's this combination of that, the decision making, like I mentioned, the choose your own adventure style, like the choices you make in your conversation and what you choose to do, and then like that Voight Kampf test, which is kind of giving you more of a base of which direction to go and who's who in the game. Like, there's the guy underneath in the jail. I think he's the first one you can put the test to decide. And I think in my version that I was playing, he was a human, but it gives you an idea of how that works. There was no like, put the green light, make it blue, and then hook these wires up, and then solve this. It's really so linear. It's so adaptable to each time you play, and the choices that you have make it feel like it's an open world where you can just do anything, because you can pull out your gun anywhere and potentially get shot too.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not, you can choose to shoot the good guys, you can choose to shoot whoever the bad guys are, you can decide who the good guys are and the bad guys are. When we get more into it, I'll explain the decisions I made and how I ended up going in the game, which is absolutely not the way I would have. Okay, that's the other thing. If you don't know kind of what's going on and you're just floating through the game, kind of like I did, you don't know what your goal is or what you're trying to do, who you're supposed to kill, who you're supposed to keep alive, or how your choices are necessarily going to influence the game, which is where your second, third, and fourth playthrough is going to come in handy. Because although I did refer to the UHS hints and stuff, I didn't walk through to follow it, because I found, again, that the way that the game worked, it was pointless for me, because as soon as at the very beginning I made one decision one way, my walkthrough is different than everybody else's walkthrough. It's an entirely different game. And they even threw like random events or random things into the game just to mess you over. So it's really truly it's like, I've said it this is the fourth time now. It's like reading a choose your own adventure book. You can't just read it once and then get to the end and that's the end of the book. You have to read it a few times. I have like my save files are labeled like I killed this guy before I killed this guy, before I did this, before I had this conversation,
Right.
because it makes you want to go back and replay it over and over just to figure those little bits out, because you've missed so much. And when a game is this impressive and this beautiful, like at least for me, I kind of want to see all of it. I want to see all the little animations. I want to see all the different endings. I want to know what's going to happen because it's intriguing, right, Paul? It's a super intriguing game.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said my name back there, Anna. I think that I think that your future playthroughs, even if they're metaphorical,
You
are
know me so well.
I'm not sure that you would. I'm not sure that the game would lend a whole lot more clarity the second time through by design, and I think that this is one of the
Right.
aspects, and I'm very glad that you framed everything that way because it helps me begin to piece together what I want to say as far as the interwoven nature between what it means to be human and that theme into the game, where what the game does different than the movie, for anybody familiar with the movie but not the game, is that there's a lot of within the force itself, within the police force, there's corruption, and yeah, there's corruption. You're not exactly sure of your colleagues who is helping the replicants, um, who obviously have escaped the slave planet and are on Earth and running loose and killed a bunch of animals. By the way, the game starts
Mhm.
in such a cool way where
Yeah,
you
right away.
right away where you get to go into Runesiders, which in the movie is the big neon, the white neon pony horse. Really wanted to say pony there. I'm not sure. It's, you know, if it's a pony, obviously. Anyway,
Yeah.
it and again, the game does things like that really well. We've talked about this on other episodes where specifically like Beavis and Butthead, where it's like the thrill is being able to finally walk around in this world. It's like, you admire this world from afar, and there's always like this flat piece of glass between you and the world. And then when they made a game about it, especially these licensed games, you finally get to walk around the world. Like I get to explore this place on my own and be cut loose in the Los Angeles in Blade Runner, and actually go to like the sushi stand that he went to, and remember the seeing Runesiders in the game with the pink neon sign and the white horse, and being able to actually go inside of there now and see what's going on, and that extends throughout the whole movie. So that's very cool. But anyway, back to the theme, the themes, and not being sure, as you said, Anna, like when you go through the game, not being sure of people, everybody else's motives, and to a degree even your own motive, right, where it's like it's fair
Mhm.
enough to say I'm not sure what I'm doing because you're not sure if you're a replicant yourself in this particular gameplay of this game. So anyway, having the police be corrupted was, I think, a brilliant, very strategical move on Westwood's uh behalf, on the game
Mhm.
maker's behalf, to choose, because it really clouds things up where you're not sure if your colleagues, you can't just assume because they're police they're good. Some of them are corrupted, and you see that in the game, like you catch wind of it, or they might be framed in a way that looks like they're corrupted and maybe they're not. Just in classic noir sort of ways where it pulls this investigation out of you or investigator out of you. Um, but what it also does for the theme of what does it mean to be human is that in some gameplays, let's just say that the police are corrupted. Your coworkers are corrupted, and you
Mhm.
see them doing horrible things. And then maybe in that same gameplay, Lucy, the pink haired girl in the game, maybe in that same gameplay, Lucy is a replicant, and you see her just like oozing empathy and being rather selfless, and living quite beautifully. And so you've got this replicant who's being, as the movie says, being more human than human. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that was so well done as far as the storytelling in the game was concerned, was to make you doubt everybody in the game around you, not sure if they're replicants or they're not, having people that you're pretty sure are humans acting in a rather shitty way, and having people who you are pretty sure are replicants acting in a really human way. And it blurs this line, and forces you to constantly ask yourself the exact question that Philip K Dick wanted you to ask when you wrote the book.
Yeah, is the ability to feel empathy actually like a determination of humanity? Like, is it is it? Where is it? Where's the line drawn? And just because somebody's ruthless or would step on a butterfly on the street, does that make them inhuman? I mean, there's so much to question in this game, and who you love and what you want to do and what your future holds. And oh my gosh, there's so much to it, dude. It's deep.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. It's an incredible extension of the movie's will in that sense, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
if anybody hasn't seen the movie, like please see it, and
Dude.
please uh, go into it like I don't know. It's I guess what I'm really trying to say is please see it twice, because it
Mm-hmm.
seems like
Oh yes, sir.
Blade Runner is a unique. Oh, that's right. You've only seen it once. Yeah, please see it twice. No? I think everybody gets it the second time. Like the first time it
Mm-hmm.
can seem almost meandering or just slow or just, visually beautiful, but you're not really sure. And then this, like, when you're really able to take in the themes of it the second time, it's really mind-blowing, because, and especially as we enter into 2024, where we have, like, open AI and things like that, where we can at least begin to see a realistic outcome where we do have androids or replicants of this capacity, maybe even in
Mm-hmm.
our lifetime. Like, it's now, when seeing is believing, and now we kind of see it with ChatGPT, where it's like, okay, I mean, it's definitely at like a rudimentary, like, infant stage, but I could definitely see this evolving into a point where we're not sure if we're talking to a human or not. And then, if they were given like a physical body and they started demonstrating empathy, then you would start to ask, like, is this consciousness? And then it's like, well, what is consciousness? And if something is conscious, is that, the same as being human, because there's no noticeable differences. And it's just, yeah, it's very, very cool. And the game just constantly toys with that. And it's a great
Yep.
time because of it.
Yeah, it just challenges the effectiveness of like our traditional markers of humanity. It makes you think about them. Like, is this even something that can judge what is human or what isn't human? And how do you measure that? And does that make them bad or wrong? And then to throw in like that limited lifespan and how far a replicant will go to expand that. And that actually throws in a whole nother dynamic too.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I guess on top of that would be the implanted memories that they give to replicants. So then you yourself in the game, you're playing as McCoy, and there's one scene in at least one of the gameplays, um, where you're talking to, I think it's a stripper, actually, like in her dressing room,
Mm-hmm.
and and
Mm-hmm.
she's like, well, how do you know that you're not? And he gives pretty good reasons as to why he's sure he's not a replicant, but then she kind of reminds you, the player, and the protagonist at the same time, like, well, they implant memories, so how can you be sure that that's, and it's cool because it blurs the line there as far as you, the player, where your avatar is McCoy, and you suddenly, like, kind of have this realization of like, oh shit, I might be a replicant then.
Yeah.
And it does
Because
affect.
even if you're, go ahead.
What if it's like, I feel like humans, like, we have this proclivity to choose a side. It's like, I honestly, I think that's the worst part of politics, where it's like this red team, blue team, and it's like, we can't help but feel just like very loyal to the side we're on, and for better and worse, because there's a lot of beautiful things about that part of us. But in gameplay's fashion, it's like, when you think that you're a replicant, you're suddenly rooting for the replicants. And if you find
Mm-hmm.
out, or you're pretty sure that you're not a replicant, then you're it kind of more rooting for, the humans, and you see the replicants
Mm-hmm.
as more, a separate entity than you. And it's really cool to feel that change kind of wash over you as you're playing, where you start out assuming you're one or the other, and as the gameplay goes on, you start to kind of frame it as like, no, you know what, actually, I think I am a replicant. And then all of a sudden that changes the decisions that you make in the game, because you're kind of subconsciously rooting for the replicants now, because you are one. And yeah, it's just that's the best insight I could possibly get into how it emotionally manipulates you as you play it.
It does. And I mean, I think it emotionally manipulates the people that are in the game. Like if you're any one of the characters and you have like implanted memories, they seem real to you. So the character's yearning for the past, right? It's a desire for connection and belonging and all of these emotions that would be traditionally be thought to be human, but they're programmed into them. Does that make them any less real? They still feel them.
Right. Right, and then you enter free will into the mix, which is kind of at the apex or the peak of the film, the first film's ending. with Rutger Hauer's famous scene, which I found out recently that he like wrote that himself in the trailer, like the night before or something like that. It's just one of those scenes where every time I've ever watched it, I get a physical reaction to it. It's so unbelievably gripping to me, and just yeah, it's just amazing. I don't even want to water it down by bumbling through what it means to me or whatever bullshit. I'll just say that I should have muted that last time I did that. Sorry, guys. But just that it's once you add free will to the factor too, that the replicants have this capacity for free will and to make empathetic or compassionate decisions. Then it just kind of throws the whole thing out the window right then and there. It's like, no, now I just don't know, because if they choose empathy and it was their free choice to do that, then once again it just brings up the isn't that human then? And I think one of the themes that Philip K Dick really played with, more so, let's say in the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, more so in the book than in the film, was playing with the idea that the replicants were more humane than humans. The humans were. They had a capacity to be more humane than even the humans were. And the game is a nice bridge, I think, between the book and the film. They bring back a few more elements from the book that got kind of left to the side in the film. Not so much animals. The animals were a much bigger part of both. The animals in the book was there was a lot more emphasis on authentic, real animals. But the game did still play with it more than the movie did, right? Because McCoy owns a real dog in the movie, which is a nice counterpart to almost Rachel from the film.
Depending on the version you play, it would
Oh, really?
appear. Because on my ending, I mean, we can get into heavier spoilers at this point, but yeah, in my ending, I guess it was revealed that it wasn't a real dog because I ended up being a full replica sympathizer.
Interesting.
So, like, I ended up shooting Guzza and going off at the moon bus, but in the meantime, my dog was killed in the apartment.
Okay, so you were not a replicant, but your dog was.
Yeah, I mean, I might have been, but it appears that my dog was.
Okay,
Yes, because
right,
at the end they're like, "Oh, well, you're just one of them." Like when I had a confrontation with my other cop coworker there, she's like, before I dispatched her, she's like, "No, your dog was just as much of a whatever you are. You're not real. He's not real." She kind of said, "Well, I guess you're just one of them. Your dog was one of them." Because I think on one of the endings I saw when I was looking at some of the other endings a little bit online, I think the dog was still alive, but then they kind of like exploded or disappeared him and then was like, dog wasn't real anyways. But maybe in other versions your dog was entirely real and maybe even potentially was not dead in your apartment, I'm guessing.
Right. No, that's definitely a possible outcome. See, and I forgot her name. The officer. It doesn't matter. She's my least favorite in the game because I feel like they play like she's just a little too on the nose. Just as far as like, what is up, Slick? Constantly calling you Slick, like you're playing it too fast and loose, Slick. Like just real, like, okay, we get it. You're one of those cops. Jeez Louise. But I didn't. Maybe it's because I didn't like her, but I didn't trust her. So like when she was like, your dog's not real, I'm like, fuck you. What do you know?
Yeah.
Whatever. You're not.
Does
real.
the dog survive? Does the dog survive in some of those? Okay, so I really,
endings.
wow.
Yeah, there's 12. Because there's 4 core different endings, and each of those 4 endings have 4 alternations to themselves. Because for people listening who haven't played, the extent to which you are free to do what you want in this game is incredible. Because you can find yourself in one of the endings with all the replicants rounded up on the ship with yourself, ready to go back to where they belong, let's say, and you can just pull out your gun and kill them all. Which is like, wow.
Right at the
like
end
it's
there.
crazy
I never even thought of that.
It's crazy that they let you do that. They account for it. It's one of the ending. It's not like a game over ending. It's one of the endings. And when you leave this after you kill them all, you of course get off the ship because you're like, fuck that, I'm not going to that planet, and I never was, I guess. And then she's out there like I didn't think you had it in you, Slick. And it's just like, ugh, she's gross. But
if you didn't kill her.
right, if you didn't kill her, which you can do, and that's
because I didn't even.
I was. Go ahead, sorry.
I didn't I didn't realize I was a replica sympathizer because I didn't know I was supposed to dispatch the replicants. That's what happened. I started letting them live, and then the game's kind of like, oh, is this what you're doing? And this is the path you're taking. I'm like, well, if that's the case, I might as well kill the cops then. because I'm already this far in. So
Right.
I just started trying to kill my coworkers, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can kill Gaza. I can kill Holden. I can just like go out there and do my thing. Great. And then next thing I know, I'm like riding on a moon bus with these crazy guys, and they're like, yeah, man, you killing all the right people. But at the same time, the game's like, you did just kill a human,
Right.
there. So, because they're warning you right from the beginning, if you kill a real human being, you're screwed. But it doesn't matter because you go off on the moon bus.
Right. God, the voice acting in this game is phenomenal. Just because
Oh,
that exact
yeah,
point in the
I
game
actually liked it.
where and he's like, "But hey, we don't live forever anyway, do we?" The scene you were just describing where you're
Mm-hmm.
being told not to kill a human, and if you do, that's like the game over. It might that's the end of you. He says that's the end of your career, and for sure, and maybe even the end of your life. And then as he's walking away, he's like, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't live forever anyway, do we?" Or whatever. It's just man, it's such great acting. But back to what you were just
Like,
saying a
can you
second
kill
ago.
him too? I could have done that too.
I don't think you have cursor
And
control
it,
at that point, but well, when you walk up
mm-hmm.
to him, probably, or you have the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, I want to again try to just outline to the audience like why I say like legitimately there's like a matrix of opportunity in this game, because what you were just saying, Anna, where it's like they found out that the game found out that you were a sympathizer because you weren't killing them, which if your gameplay was similar to one of mine, you come across Lucy right away, and it's like I'm not killing this little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, I
Mm-mm.
know they're like they really
Yeah,
want me
how
to.
can you?
Yeah, they're like she's a replicant because you think she is because she's being treated in a very disgusting slave-like manner from the owner of the animal emporium of Runesiders. I guess it's probably Runesider, but anyway. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, like right off the bat, I was like a sympathizer because I'm like I'm not killing Lucy. So to which what you were saying, Anna, and to the listeners to understand the degree of like possibility in this is like the game will catch on that you're a sympathizer, that you're not shooting them, but
Mm-hmm.
within that gameplay, some of the NPCs have already taken their pass. So like
Yeah.
one of your colleagues is already corrupted or not. So it's like now you
Hmm.
have like, is she a sympathizer? Okay, she is sympathizing. Is this guy corrupted? Yes, he is. Did she give him the void comp? No, she didn't. And it's like each one of those branches into a different route of gameplay. So it's just yeah, it's phenomenal. I'm not sure there is another game, as you already said, and Longbow is probably the closest, but it's
Mm-hmm.
and in Longbow's defense, it was quite a few 6 or so years before this game came out, and 6 years was a long time, technologically speaking, in the '90s, right? Like we were making leaps and bounds almost every year at that point. Um, so that is a huge disadvantage. In other words, because if you were to say 6 years ago, we did this Blade Runner episode 5 years ago, and it's like dude, not a lot has happened from 2019 to 2024. Like my computer is from 2019 and there's nothing it can't run right now, like whereas if
Mm-hmm.
we had a 5.5-year-old computer in the 90s, there would be just a world of difference as far as performance and things like that. I don't know how I got off on that side tangent, but
That's
anyway.
okay. I was trying to think of games that were similar, and nothing then I would think what Night Trap is kind of like the neo-noir detective atmospheric game, and you become a detective. But like, okay, there's like Disco Elysium, which is a RPG that you or I have not played, but I have heard a lot of people talking about it online, and it goes deep into philosophy. I always have trouble with that word. Like philosophical themes. There's like
You're doing
identity,
good.
morality, and free will, and it's all that whole dystopian setting, and it kind of. I think like as far as it being open ended and lots of different directions it could take, if you have a look at that one online, I think that's about the closest. But again, when did that come out? 2019, dude. A lot later. Maybe Deus Ex has interesting branching narratives. It's again in the RPG world, right? But that is an older game. I think it was from even the 90s or early 2000s, and it's got a lot of morals that end up shaping the story, is what I remember about that. But it's
Right.
not exactly the same.
No, because they're RPGs. Get them out of here.
Because
Unbelievable. Trying to have a nice conversation here.
but in the adventure game world, like I said, I don't think there is really anything else quite like that I know of at all.
Yeah. No, agreed. I don't, to that degree, it's not an underrated game, but it seems like a game that doesn't come up on the radars a lot, and I guess maybe that there is a gatekeeping inheritance from it being an IP, from it being Blade Runner. So it's like, if you
Mhm.
haven't seen Blade Runner, you'd probably be slightly averse to it, where it's like, I don't know that world, I don't know that thing, so I'm not gonna. And then if
Mhm.
you did see
I am
Blade
glad
Runner
I
and you,
watched the movie first.
right, you need that some sort of, maybe, I guess, connection. It can feel like gate kept, where it's like, "Ugh, I don't want to, just jump into it that way. Maybe I should see the movie first, then you put that off, and then you put off playing the game." Or there's plenty of people who saw the movie and didn't like it, to which I'll say, as I said 5 years ago, you're wrong for not liking it. Um, but for the people that watched the movie and found it boring or whatever, um, which to a degree is fair enough. I've showed it to many people that I'm close with or care about. It's like one of those movies for me where it's like, you don't have to like it, but you have to. I'm gonna force you to watch it, as I did to Anna.
That
Um,
was my son, actually. He's like, that was okay. He liked Total Recall a lot more.
yeah.
I'm like, well,
Well,
that's because there's more action, right?
yeah. I was just gonna say, Jacob was what, 11 or 12 at the time, probably 12. So it's like,
Yeah, he was 12. Yeah.
yeah, dude, a 12-year-old in 2023 or whatever. That's probably too big of an ask, man. I mean, like, I don't know. Any movies from the era in which credits came before the film is a big ask for our
That's a good
kids.
point.
It's like the pacing was just different back then, man. Like, there was, granted,
It
Blade Runner
was.
is slow for a slow paced film. It is, but it's like, even like Indiana Jones, like the faster paced older movies are way slower paced than they are now. Like everybody's got, what do you call it, TikTok brain. So it's like, yeah. But
Hmm.
anyway, like the movie, and this would be a
What
nice
about
seg.
the?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just to cut back to what you were saying. It did kind of like put into mind Techno Babylon a little bit. Just like it had the branching narrative, there was a little bit of like social commentary stuff, and it like almost felt like maybe that or even Gemma Rue were both a little bit influenced by the idea of Blade Runner.
For sure, for sure. But then, Blade Runner
Hmm.
is. I just like puff my chest out because I'm just recognizing like the douchebag
I heard you
fandom
doing it.
inside. Yeah, sorry, I'm calling myself out here. Relax, Paul. You don't have to fucking go to war for Blade Runner, but it is. But he is anyway. But it is like the Godfather of cyberpunk in a sense. So I feel like
Hmm.
anything cyberpunk is inherently taking something from Blade Runner, whether they know it or not. And I add that last part in because it's like,
Hmm.
it's a pretty old movie by now. So like there's probably some younger devs out there that wouldn't even know this shit actually came from Blade Runner, because we lose track of origins. Fair enough. But yeah, I think anything cyberpunk, especially Techno Babylon, which is like quite on the nose for it, or
Hmm.
unabashedly, like,
Cyberpunk.
yeah, like influenced
Beneath
by
a
Blade
Steel
Runner.
Sky is almost kind of cyberpunk then
It
too.
is.
It's almost Blade Runnery. That was 94, but it does have that like you don't have any memory. You're trying to unravel a conspiracy. It's got like some of those elements going too in it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think I don't know. That'd be a task in itself, trying to properly define cyberpunk, especially for a bunch of nerds like us and our listeners. Sorry, guys, I'm taking you down with this, but but it's like, and I think it's a mixture of like dystopian, post-apocalyptic dystopian, like futures, and a polarization between that and the technology that exists. Where it's like, we advanced well beyond where we're at now, but we fucked it all up. Like something like that is
Hmm.
cyberpunk. Because it's not always like
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic. It's usually dystopian, at least in its politics. But look at like Techno Babylon, for example. It's not like, you get the idea in Blade Runner that this world is really like taped together. It's falling apart. It's pretty. It's becoming uninhabitable. It's becoming pretty
Hmm.
dystopian. Techno Babylon goes more the route that a lot of cyberpunk films and media does, where it's a lot more polished and pristine. Virtuaverse does this as well, where it's very polished and pristine and clean, and the future you'd imagine to match the technology, but they still bring dystopian elements in through, maybe it's like politics. Altered Carbon, the
Right.
first season of that, man. If anybody's listening, you guys like love Blade Runner and haven't seen Altered Carbon,
Hmm.
watch only the first season, because they totally fucked that show up. Like they ruined it, absolutely ruined it. If anybody out there disagrees, I would love to hear how they, because I just, it was such a visible train wreck, where it's like, what did you guys do? Like, a ball has never been dropped. I'm not quite sure, like Ultra Carbon season 2, but anyway, season 1 is contained enough to be able to enjoy it, and it doesn't end in such a, like, it ends a little cliffhangery, but not in a way that like you need to see it resolved. And it's a visual treat. It's very, very pays a lot of homage to Blade Runner. And what I'm getting at here is that in a lot of dystopian cyberpunk things that don't have that deterioration going on, they do it politically, where it's like the rich and the elite live up high, um, physically,
Yeah.
like symbolically, they're
Always
up high.
physically. You have to
Yeah,
take an elevator to like go see anything in Blade Runner 2 if it's up.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the peasants and the androids and everything lived on ground level, where it's you know covered in layers of like debris and I don't want to say fog because that's not gross enough, but you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, that they're like walking through
Yeah.
like the fumes
Misty.
of the machines that power the elite's lives. They have to breathe in.
It's like
Mm,
high tech, low life, right? Like you've got cybernetic implants and all this really cool modern artificial intelligence, but there's also social decay,
mm,
widespread poverty, and like
right.
the money is in the hands of a few. It's super concentrated. They have all of the wealth. And then outside of that, you've got like hackers and hustlers. Like these are the outcasts, the marginalized figures. And it doesn't mean that they don't have the intelligence, but they don't have the power that the corporations and the oppressive systems have that are kind of like weighing down on their lives.
Right. Right. So yeah, it's like taking the metaphor of the elites and making it a physical reality where they live up high and the poors live down below. And sorry, I've gone Tom Segura on that one, the poors, but but Altered Carbon plays with that really, really well anyway, as far as the up high and down below. Even Fifth Element, I think, has a quick glimpse of it, because
Mhm.
the film takes place
It
like
does.
up high, and then there's a chase scene where they go real down low, and it's like you get a quick glimpse of like this horrible quality of life for the people that are actually down there. And anyway, all this to say is, actually, I don't know. I don't really even know how we got here. I guess the Blade Runner got this kind of cyberpunk thing rolling. Is that how we got here from Techno
Mhm.
Babylon? And how it doesn't
It
always have to
did.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? Let's
We were
go.
kind of we were essentially identifying cyberpunk as
Nice.
what it is a little bit, like a really long dictionary description.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. I feel. Thank you. I feel good about it now that we have the end cap on there. So, um, well, let's move into, before, because we're gonna close this one out, because it is Tuesday, so we need to be done and edit this and put it up. But for our last whatever, let's cover just the atmosphere and the music. So
Mhm.
give me your thoughts on it.
Oh, well, it's kind of exactly what we were just talking about, right?
Mm,
I mean, all of the dark lights, the neon lights, the it's almost like it's a bit of disconcerting, right? You're in Los Angeles. It's the future. Well, I think it was set in 2019 actually, which is it was the future at the time. It was always nighttime. It was always dark. You have this like urban landscape that was really run down, so the apartments were kind of messed up. There was overflowing trash like everywhere you went. The street lights, they're flickering. To me, the whole game felt like society was just about to collapse. Like
mm.
structures are down, like even in the underground sewage, you're going through scenes where stuff is down on the ground and you're crawling up and through things. And yeah, I mean that combined with the soundtrack, which by the way, it had this like really oppressive atmosphere throughout all of it. Like you knew there was a lot of oppression. Like when you were talking to the girl about if she was serving cheese, right? And she's like, oh, no, no, no. Oh, no, I wouldn't do anything like that. And then later you got to go back to her and you're like, you know what? I'm pretty sure the cheese is coming from you. And you think about how seriously the game is taking the cheese and how she's worried she's going to get killed. And he's like, you know what? You should probably take something a little bit less risky than cheese. That's the environment right there. That's that's some serious stuff. You're not in an easy world. People are kind of fearing for their lives all the time, but taking big chances because they have to, because they need to survive.
Right. Right. And that reminds me of a previously brought up segment here that I kind of abandoned, which was the implementation of animals into the game. And I was saying earlier in this episode that the game bridges a bit of a gap between the book, which was very centric towards authentic animals being like a social status, to where the movie just barely touches on it, kind of play.
Yeah, with the snake, right? Like, oh, I can't have a real one because she's like, this is just, I just need to do this for my act, right?
Right, exactly. So the movie pays, I would say, pays respect to the notion of the animals, and then otherwise leaves it alone. And then the game is somewhere in between, where I believe that the cheese would be an example in itself of
Hmm.
the kind of like the reverence and the hierarchy in which real animals stand in this world, where just something real, the reverence is paid to something real, to an actual real animal in this world of plastic and androids, and for a real animal to produce real cheese, um,
Hmm.
is again just a really deeply layered writing in this game, where it's like straight down to the nature of cheese, where once you tie that back to being from an animal, and animals being extremely rare
Super
commodities.
scarce.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Then so with cheese, and all of a sudden, so now you're in like this future where, like you said, it's like being taken so seriously, but cheese is like this black market commodity, or luxury, I guess, more so.
Hmm.
And it's just, yeah, it's really cool how it runs all the way down
Right.
into it.
Because in the movie, it was just like owls, wasn't it? Like, other than that snake and a brief reference, there was like, I don't know, in the game, it almost feels like they've devalued organic life in a way, especially like just through the animals. Like, it blurs the lines between artificial and real, and makes it so that how is it important, but then you realize how much animals affect our everyday lives every day. Like, for example, without a bumblebee, we don't even know how to pollinate or do half the stuff they do. We don't even know how to make honey. We just don't know.
Right.
And it just shows that real animals are integral to all of society. So when you have a focus on manufactured products, there's you can't discount everything that an animal is. And then the people that are on in there, like the girl selling cheese, I bet you she was not just selling cheese to other people on the lower levels. I bet you she was selling cheese to people up there working in the Tyrell Corporation too.
Right.
As we know, I mean, we found evidence of her items being in higher suites and things. So it's like that again blurs the line between hierarchies as well. It's really it's pretty complicated.
Yeah, well, you're right about the owl. The owl definitely, like, Tyrell has owns the owl, and actually tying back into the up high down below, like Tyrell's at the very top of the building, top of the hierarchy symbolically and everything like that, and has the real owl. But to your point, yeah, it's like you get this sense that the world is so it's just yearning for something real at this point, and you can imagine it even
Hmm.
from where we're at right now, where like especially for like our kids' generations, like this is the viral notion of like touch grass has been going around the last few months right now. Like
Hmm.
go touch grass, but it's basically like something like it's something like the latest generation thinks they invented. That the
Hmm.
notion of going
Hmm.
to touch grass. So that's just circulating the internet right now, and it plays into this nicely, because you could almost see like people are forgetting to look at real things outside of their screens. Like we're seeing all the flowers and animals, that will stick with animals metaphorically, that we need on our screens, and we're starting to remind ourselves
Hmm.
like, hey, you should probably touch grass, go see a real horse, or whatever. And you could just imagine in 5 more years, 10 more years, 20 more years, and obviously the damage would doing to the planet, or could potentially continue to double down on or do more damage to the planet, where it ends up more dystopian. um, we're already like artificially injecting nutrients into the soil, synthetic nutrients and things like that, which are causing all kinds of health problems. We're on path for this type of a future, where by the time we all look up from our screens, it's gone. And I think that's the world
Hmm.
in which Blade Runner exists, where everybody's looked up and the animals are gone, and they just want something real. Like they just want to see, like,
Hmm.
they just, yeah, I can't really articulate better than that. They just want to finally see something real, like a real life animal, and have authentic cheese instead of synthetically grown this or that. And it's just Blade Runner is becoming more and more powerful and relevant, I guess, as we continue to head down the path in which it seems like it came from.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah.
Well, yeah, we're right there. We're at the level of brain computer interfaces. I mean, you have a chip implanted by Elon into somebody that had uh, inability to use their body properly, right? You have augmented reality, digital overlays over the real world. That's a thing, right? Pokemon Go, anyone, right? It's a thing we're doing. Virtual reality, the immersive experiences. I mean, you, Paul, in the last 24 hours have probably been in virtual reality.
Yeah, you can't prove that. I've told you time and time. Yeah,
And
no,
the
you
fact
could,
that you are an AI to begin with, I mean, it all connects, right?
yeah, or am I? Sorry, I didn't commit like I should have there. Um, all right, well, the last thing to really cover here is the music, and I just not a ton to say. The game is really weird. Okay, there's something to say. The game is really weird in the sense that they didn't have rights to the source material from Vangelis' soundtrack, but they did have rights to replicate the music, unironically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is really strange. So for the most part, the music is unique. It's very much in the style of Blade Runner, which is just, again, okay. If you haven't seen the movie and you do go, or if you've seen it once and you thought it was boring, I implore everybody to watch it a second time and watch it with the notion that the music in the movie is one of the characters, and I feel like that's going to move somebody, just one of you,
Mm-hmm.
because once you kind of I don't know, get it in, enter it in your perspective that the music itself is like one of the characters. It does something for you, like emotionally. There's something about the music in that movie, and this isn't a unique thought of mine. Obviously, it's inspired like plenty of people, generationally speaking and musically speaking. But it's just, there's something about like the power and the control over your emotions that the music in the film has. And um, I think what it does brilliantly is like they took the notion of like, let's do this futuristic noir film. And so Vangelis approached it where it's like, okay, well, instead of in noir, we might have had a lot of brass, a lot of horns, as was the
Mm-hmm.
style at the time. And so Vangelis uses CS80 to come up with just these like soaring brass leads from a synthesizer, that just made it sound like futuristic noir. And I
Oh
think
my gosh,
so
yeah.
much of what Vangelis did just shaped the entirety of the product, of the experience. And it's my only
Mm-hmm.
critique of Blade Runner 2049, because that's a phenomenal movie. Dennis Villeneuve did such an awesome job with that. Villeneuve's such a unique director, I have to say real quick. He did Dune, an alien movie with, I think, Jodie Foster, that's phenomenal. It's really good, even though I can't think
Mm-hmm.
of the name. It's good. But he did he was the best person to have done Blade Runner 2049. He knocked it out of the park, and he has a really unique quote that I don't know that I agree with. I don't think he's wrong, but his quote was, um, "Dialogue is for TV." It's
Mm-hmm.
something
Hmm.
along those lines. And he's like, in cinema, it's, you don't need the dialogue to tell people how to feel or what to think. You let the cinematography do that, and he basically the snippet was, dialogue is for TV. And I would counter that by saying that one of my other favorite movies of all time would be like Inglorious Bastards, and anything Tarantino is just nothing but dialogue. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
not
Oh yeah.
nothing but, that's not fair, but yeah,
Well,
maybe.
even a movie like Clerks is like that. It's like one of the first funny dialogue based movies I'd ever really encountered was
Right.
Clerks.
Right. No, that's an awesome point too. Right. And it's just like, yeah, anything bantery, like, I love that kind of shit. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, from Villeneuve's point of view, it's he's not wrong, and that's maybe just a whole another rabbit hole to talk about with your friends over dinner tonight. Like, is dialogue for TV? But Villeneuve, I guess what I'm saying is why he's not wrong is because he walks the walk. Where in Blade Runner 2049, and I'm just gonna assume from what I've heard and seen of Dune, without having seen it yet, um, he doesn't need dialogue. He speaks thousands of words without saying anything, just by looking at his landscapes and letting scenes linger and letting the music play. And anyway, all this
Well,
circles
the
back.
ambient noise too. The rain, the traffic noise, the
Right,
flickering neon scenes, the grimy reality of Los Angeles. I mean, even outside of the music, those sound effects draw you in too.
right, right. Like Villeneuve, he'll change from hot to cold. I don't want to say palettes, but scenes, and just, you'll go from like this desolation of like, there's like these giant like statues in the sand where all you see is like the foot, like this high heels coming through the sand, and then you step into the next scene, which is completely just cold and blue and 90-degree angles, and it's like, it changes how you feel without anybody saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
you kind of know that you're probably where Tyrell, this film's Tyrell is. I forgot Jared Leto's character's name, but anyway, just yeah, that's just I guess a small snippet of an example of what you can do as far as making people feel things, and then you throw music on top of it, which again Vangelis just killed. And that brings me all the way back to 5 minutes ago when I was going to say my only critique of 2049 was I didn't like them using Hans Zimmer for that. Like Hans Zimmer's brilliant and
Mm-hmm.
everything, but it's just like I don't know, there's something about that choice that just irks me. And he didn't even do a bad job. He didn't crush it, so that gives me a small window to criticize it, and I'm taking it because it's just like maybe it just feels like against the spirit of it to have used somebody as um, overused, frankly, as Hans Zimmer is. But who knows? I mean, Hans Zimmer was very likely heavily inspired by him, and really, maybe his whole life he just wanted to do a Blade Runner movie, and he finally got to. So whatever, as long as everyone's happy. But back to the game, back to the music. They were not able to use the Blade Runner blues in this game, even though they do use Blade
No.
Runner blues in this game. They just had to recreate it themselves. And
Right.
and I just find that so strange. And this is my closing thought: is there's a scene in the game overlooking the city where Blade Runner blues kicks in, and that song is just like it had it did things that changed the course of my actual life. My admiration for that music,
Mm-hmm.
which made me choose, career decisions and things like that. So I feel like I almost owe something to that specific piece. It's to this day it's my alarm clock because when I wake up, it makes me feel like I'm in a noir film. It's like you wake up to that and you just get this rainy, like, man, it was another cold day. See, looking right, and just yeah, it sets me into a playful mood for the day. But anyway, not that it's a particularly playful song, but when that song kicks in the game, it feels like a cameo, and that ties into my
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on the original Blade Runner film's soundtrack being a character in the movie. Because when Blade Runner Blues shows up in this game, you're just like, oh my god, like you get this almost excitement of like, I know him, like I know that character. You're the one from the other movie, and it's just very cool and very powerful, and the game's amazing. The end.
Well, I think they had a team come in and do up some of the music. Frank and Basil compositions. They sort of filled in those missing spots. But again, it's back to what you said, haunting synths, right? To me, it was like it was isolation and unease and bleak, and then there'd be like these like super melancholy piano melodies, but they were like, I don't know how you could describe it. They were kind of sparse, but it added this emotional depth for me when I was playing. It sort of made me feel that moral ambiguity, and I was like, It made me question the narrative. And then there'd be like these little orchestral like, poof, like flourishes, and it'd
Mm.
be like these key moments. There'd be all this tension, and then it would heighten the emotions. Like I really felt the music as I was playing the game. And like I said, mixed with the ambient soundscapes and everything else they were doing, it all pulled together. The amazing voice acting. I put on my great big headphones, the ones that totally cover your ears instead of like the usual small ones or
Mm.
leaving my speakers on. Because I really wanted to get this 3D world of sound. And it did it with the speech too, and with the things would come from different directions. You're kind of almost looking behind you like, oh, what's coming, what's going on. It really brought me into it a lot.
Mm. Yeah, it's nice to hear the confirmation on your end because I had such a strong bias for it going in that I would have been actually pretty content with you being like, yeah, it was good. I would have been like, okay, it was a normal soundtrack then. My bad.
No, I have a bunch of notes because as I was writing, I'm like, oh my god, the orchestra, what is this? Is this piano? But wait, it's gone. It would do that to me a lot. Like I'd just be like listening, oh, what's going on? Oh, it's gone. Oh, it's shifted, or the tone shifted, or it did it all the way through. I don't think there was a single moment that the music did anything but pull me further into that game world, which is why, like, you know what, I could have grabbed a regular old walkthrough or a video on YouTube and plowed through this game in 2 or 3 hours. I bet. I probably could have, but I think I would have missed out on a lot of what this game was doing. I had to do some thinking. I wrote some notes like who's who is, and I'd be like, is she, isn't he? And how did the test go? Did I push the test too far? Should I have maybe stopped the test earlier? Because now they're super mad. And then I'm like, how much of it is me and how much of this is pre-programmed into the game, because I don't know, but it made me feel like everything I did made such a big difference, and the music played right into that. It was like straight into these dopamine centers in my brain, but it also hit like curiosity and intrigue and mystery, and almost like not fear for the character or fear for me, but just like fear for the world, fear for how people are viewing things. It made me think of our own world and humanity, and I think the music did all of that. So it's a big freaking deal, dude.
I really like your articulation of like administering the void comp, and you're like, I don't know if it's me or the game, and the game just
Mm-hmm.
nails that so hard, where it's like, because you have this freedom
Mm-hmm.
to stop the test, and it's like, did I just so happen to stop it like at the last one, or what if there have been more questions? Like,
Mm-hmm.
was there a route in which he doesn't freak out? And like, it turns out there is, so that only makes it even
Mm-hmm.
more mind melting. And it does a really good job of putting you in the shoes of an actual investigator, where you're like, I don't know what's going
Mm-hmm.
on, and I have to figure it out. And it's like, what,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what
Which
you
is
want
why it's not
from
a
a
walkthrough game at all.
right,
It
right,
is not. Like,
and
it is not the same game. If you're just following along, then just watch the bloody video, man. Don't even bother.
right.
Don't. Like, there's no reason for it. Because I was so lost at so many different times, and that was a part of the gameplay too. Like, there's quite a few times where I just had to put it down and go walk around for a while and go, where do I go? What do I do? What choice do I make? Do I go back and restore because I did this?
Right.
Is this okay that I did this? Like, it made me think that stuff all the time.
Right. I see. I had that moment recently when I was playing beta testing one of Cosmic Void's Tachyon Dreams anthology, and I had to go to bed on one of the puzzles, and like I felt like this knee jerk reaction to get frustrated because it's, it's just, I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's just human behavior. It's like if you can't figure something out, especially immediately, like I want it now, then it's like a little frustrating. But like I really actually like learned to just like breathe and relax and like be comfortable being a little uncomfortable, because it brought back all kinds of like nostalgic feelings for adventure games, where it's like, this is
Mm-hmm.
weirdly enough part of the fun though. It's like laying in bed and being like, God, what did I do wrong? What do they want me to do? Do they want me to go
Mm-hmm.
here? Well, you know what? When I wake up tomorrow, here, I'm going to write a note in my phone real quick. When you wake up tomorrow, try the, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you find yourself like really giving it your care and attention and time, and like it takes over your life for those 24 hour or whatever hours, and then you wake up the next day and you try the thing, and of course, if it worked, you get an even bigger dopamine hit because you paid for it. And yeah, Blade
Hmm.
Runner does that in a sense where it puts you in a position of, it's the most immersive detective adventure game I think that there is. Where
Mm-hmm.
you are a detective, you feel like a detective, you're investigating, you genuinely don't know what's going to happen next, what you're necessarily supposed to do, and I mean that literally, because it's like what you're supposed to do probably varies, morally speaking, on whether or not you're a replicant or not. Because again, to my
Mm-hmm.
point earlier, was like we pick sides, and we defend our own and things like that, where it's like if you find out you're a replicant, then what you're supposed to do maybe isn't to kill your own. So it's like you really are trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out not only what to do, but like who are the players in the game. Are they replicants? Are they not? Are they corrupted? Are they not? And you have to actually be an investigator to get through this game. And so for anybody that wants an authentic detective experience in an adventure game, I don't think there's anything close to this one.
Mm-mm. There is not. No, it's good. And two, save your game before you have any interactions. Try killing people. Try not killing people. Try talking to them. Like, there are so many reasons to just put your finger in a page and see what happens on page 71.
And like you, since we already spoiled this ending, because don't worry, like there's 9 more guys. But since we've decided to take 1 or 2 sacrificially for the purpose of the episode, Anna, you said that you shot uh, Clovis during his big.
Gaza? Oh, and yeah.
Oh, okay, wait, okay. Which one was it? Gaza?
Gaza,
You did
down
say
at
one.
when you're in the green room there, and he's like, yeah, it's all right, because he's the one that got the guy out of my apartment, because there's a guy living in the apartment. He's not mine. He's with the dog, right? And you're like, okay, did you get the guy out of my apartment? He's like, yeah, I got the guy out of your apartment. And then 2 replicants kind of run in the room and go, hey, man, what's going on,
Right.
man? And then Gaza kind of walked away from me, and it gave me the control of the cursor. And I'm like, hey, what if I just kill that guy? Because now you know he's a corrupt cop. But he's also like, I up until the moment I killed him, I kind of thought he was a replicant too. But then I killed him and found out he was a human being. And then it's like, oh, whoops. But then I was like, I'm going to keep it.
Right. Right. Okay. No, that's really cool. I had no idea that you could shoot him there. So that teaches me that, and I'll just abandon the other thing because it would spoil an ending that we don't need to spoil. But the point being is that the game, almost humorously sometimes, as you just articulated, really the same point. It's like sometimes you can do stuff and it sticks, and you're just like, what? I could just
Yeah.
just shoot him. So yeah, it's a
This
lot
is
of fun.
okay.
There's no dead endings either. Like there's no wrong,
Mm-mm.
necessarily wrong choices. Obviously there's better endings than not, but yeah, it's like you're not gonna enter a Walking Dead because you shouldn't have shot him. And yeah, I don't know what to critique about this game. The movements of the characters are late 90s weird. It's like the only time this game dates itself. This is my only critique I have for the entire game. Is the only time the game dates itself, because I said in the beginning of this episode, it holds up. I would say entirely, except for the way that the humans move in the cutscenes. Look super just wired and weird in late 90s. It's the only time that it looks weird because they don't use a whole lot of like true 3D models. But that's like the only critique I have. I don't know how else to critique.
One critique. I have one. When you hit enter, it skips the dialogue, which is great, and I have no problem with that. But if you accidentally hit enter because you forget and you skip a dialogue because you're done reading it in a cutscene, you skip the whole cutscene. So if you didn't save it right before the cutscene, you have to go way back to wherever you were, because you can't miss a cutscene. You need to know what happens in every single cutscene, and I found that out the hard way.
Right. Okay. No, that's a fair enough one. That's interesting too, dev-wise. Makes you think.
Yeah, because I'll be reading it, but I'll hear it. So I'll sometimes, if they're not done talking, I'll do the thing and I'll click it just that little bit early. It's kind of a habit. So during a cutscene, you can't. You have to take your hands right off the mouse, sit back, and just go, okay, I'm going to watch it and I'm going to let it be a cutscene. And it's cinematic. It's supposed to be. It's like a little movie. You shouldn't be clicking through it anyways, right? Lesson learned. I won't do it again.
Good. Well, I'm glad you gave yourself the business for that. Took yourself. And I forget the expression, around the block. That's not the expression.
Sounds good to me. That sounds sexual or something. What is it? She's been around the block. Isn't that a...
Oh goodness, sorry, I did not mean to call you a whore. It's my bad.
No, that's okay. You
happens every episode.
It depends on the game I'm playing.
Right.
Yeah, no, that you call me up. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Depends on the game I'm playing. In some games, you need to be more of a whore than other games. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's it. That's it. I would say we were not even going to talk for this long, so that was great. I think that's a good run through of the game. Did you have any sort of closing statements you want to say about the game before I do my things?
Oh, about the game? No, I don't. I've said all the things. How about you, Anna? Do you have any closing statements about the game?
Yeah, if I'm going to recommend for somebody to play it, I don't know the enhanced version. I haven't seen it. I've only heard what I've heard. I don't want to judge it, but I highly recommend just going back and playing the original because, hey man, $10 million budget doesn't lie. It's a beautiful flippin' game. And I'm sure they can make it more beautiful or they can do all these other things, but right there, in 1997 in this game, exactly as it is, to me is like 10 out of 10. This is the most 1997 could possibly ever do. And it's kind of the most that, like, I don't even know that they could make a game like that now. The amount of work, the amount of time, the amount of money, the budget, everything they had to do to make it happen. This is a one-off, guys. Go play this game. It is out there. It's sometimes harder to find the non-enhanced version, but yeah, go find it. Go play it.
Yeah, and when you plug it into Scum, they've got the I forgot what they call it. Is that the enhanced or the recovered something with in it? Doesn't matter. But basically, Scumbian found a ton of stuff in the code that was unutilized in the game to save space. That basically the developers would have wanted if not for space constraints. So it's not like Scum puts a bunch of crap in that they had cut because it wasn't good enough. They more just put stuff back in the game that wasn't able to ship with it, and gives you basically a director's cut version of the game. And if you know Blade Runner,
that was the other thing. Sorry.
Sorry.
I get excited, but sorry. But okay, there's also an option in the menu that if you're in a hurry and you don't actually care about anything extraneous, you can click an option that says just follow the story and only give me relevant conversation in detail. Now, I didn't turn that on because I want all the little bits and pieces, but just know if you're all business minded and you just want to get through the damn game, there's actually an option to do that so that all of the information they give you is relevant. Which is crazy. I've never even seen that in a game before.
It's weird. It's prophetic. They're like, future adventure gamers are going to be sick of this shit, and they're just. We have to fight ourselves. Adventure gamers have to fight ourselves. Like sometimes we don't know what we want. We're like, we just want to, explore, a nice environment. And then it's like our human little like reptile brain kicks in. It's like, get to the end, win the thing, and it's like, no, that's not. Damn it, that's not the point. All right. Well,
so now you probably have some announcements and some brief things to talk about before I do my endy bits.
Do I? Okay, so we have a release date for the game. I said I would tell podcast listeners first. We're gonna release the game. Probably no, I can't say probably this time. It's for real. We're gonna release the game.
No more proper release.
No more proper.
This is it.
Proper release at all. Like
proper release.
The Phantom Fellows will be coming to not only Steam but to GOG September 27th. That's it. It's gonna be done.
You heard that? GOG and Steam.
Exactly. We're didn't last episode we tried to do the Bjorn noise. It didn't go well. Nah, where's my can? I should have said the announcement through the can. That's okay. Fuck it. We've gotten through this whole episode without a single edit. We're not doing it now. So September 27th, you can wishlist it on Steam now. And it'll be public to wishlist and whatever on GOG very soon. That page just got finished. We got achievements working. The Steam version, Steam limits the amount of achievements you can have on release to 100. And there's 100 achievements in the game, and then on GOG version, there's going to be over 145 achievements. And what's cool about that is that at least in the Steam version, none of those first 100 achievements are pandering. Like none of them are like you did the thing you had to do. So it's like 100 different just hidden, different degrees of hidden, but yeah, optional things, alternate solutions, Easter eggs, just 100 weird ass little tiny things you could find, references, all that fun stuff. And then GOG will have even more. GOG has probably like 10 or 15. Like in GOG version, you're going to get like the day complete badge or whatever. So there's like a few of them that would be unavoidable achievements. But anyway, the point is, it's a ton of achievements. The game is almost on beta testing. Everything's looking good. Morale is high from the reviews and things we're hearing from people that are playing it. It's a big old game. If you play it to get through it, which means like, sticking just using Oliver. Like there'll be like obviously there's points in the game where you'll need to use Engelbert the Ghost, but if you like for the most part you're just trying to get through the game like we were just describing with Blade Runner here, it's looking like about a 15-hour experience. And then if you're playing the game to like see everything, like there's unique text for everything for Oliver and Engelbert. So if you're the type that wants to like see everything as Oliver and see it all as Engelbert through his perspective and his responses and things like that, then it's more like a 23-hour game. So it's
see and interact. I mean, you can eyeball on everything and you can hand on everything for each character. So if you think about that, like that is a lot because that's everything on the screen for every single character. And that's not just every item on the screen. That's every star. That's every tree, the garbage can, the window of the building, the gravestone. It doesn't matter. If you can see it and it's on the screen, you can click it. You're going to get a unique interaction from each of them looking and seeing. So it's a lot. Actually, it's a lot of fun.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for that. And yeah, and gosh, I think we're probably going to do an episode on the game just before it releases, just to talk about just what it was like. I never did any dev diaries or whatever. That was the extent of my capacity here as far as like solo dev things and solo dad things. I'm like the line is I can't vlog. I don't have the capacity to blog or vlog or whatever about it. But we'll do an episode that makes up for that ground and kind of talks about what it's like to make an adventure game as if it was you, the listener, just like, waking up one day, like, what if I did do that though? Like, what is that like? So we'll cover that and more about the game then. So that's that. The other announcement before I hand off to Anna to do our little ending is we're going to be at the Adventure Game Fanfare July 26th through probably 9th, whatever 3 days is. And
Mhm.
It's in Tacoma, Washington. I'm not sure if there's tickets left. Doesn't matter. Everybody listening probably already knows. If you're going and you listen to the podcast, please come say hi to us. That would be super cool, just to say hello to people and know who all is listening to our nonsense, and we'll have fun and we'll see you there. And we probably also Anna and I are going to be on panels. I'm hosting a Pixar panel. Anna's doing two herself. All this will be like live streams, so we'll be linking that up. It's going to be a ton of fun. And all that really to say is that this is probably going to be our last episode until August. So we're
Mhm.
most likely going to be taking. You're only going to miss one episode. In other words, so basically, instead of putting one out in 2 weeks from now when we'd more or less be there, we're going to probably just go ahead and skip that one because we both have a lot to
Mhm.
basically do and prepare for just being there itself, because we're not just showing up as guests or whatever because of the panels and all that. So yeah, this is gonna be our last episode. We're doing a summer break. That's a neat little way to put it. We're taking
Yeah.
a summer break, and we will see you there. And I think that's all I have to say. Quick thank you to Chad Armstrong, because I think you still listen. Like, why
Hmm.
do you still? No, thank you to Chad Armstrong for getting me through 2 incredibly difficult weeks with porting my game to not only Steam and Steam and GOG, but the Mac port, and getting achievements to work. It's been a lot. Like
Mhm.
in the trenches, like a lot. Like it's borderline traumatizing. I'm never updating AGS again. I just want everything to work now in the next games, because it was that hard. I don't want to ever figure this stuff out again. But I wouldn't have got there without Chad Armstrong, and just a huge thank you to him. And that's all I got.
And if you want to learn a little bit about Chad Armstrong, he was actually on our podcast on May 19th of 2020, and we talked a little bit about the King's Quest 1 Redux with him. So that was actually a really good episode. It was our 74th episode, and yeah, definitely go and check it out. It was just Paul and I and Chad just chatting it up.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, and you can check out his you can check out the King's Quest 1 Redux on edenwaith.com.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And outside of that, thank you to our Patreon supporters in the True Believer tier. And that would be Brian Manown, Gareth, Mark Fillion, and Michael Council, Tim Ellis. And I'm also going to say thank you to Alan May, because he is a newer subscriber as a super fan. And I don't think I have given him the shout out yet. So thanks to all of you and everybody else in Patreon for making the show possible and helping us continue to not have to pay for everything we do out of our own pockets. So yay,
Yeah,
yay
thank
to
you.
all of you.
Oh my god, thank you. Okay, sorry, that was
Thank you
regrettable.
so much.
I would
Yeah,
edit
that's
that. If
I
I was
liked it.
editing, I would have cut that, like, for sure.
No, these people are going to have to hear it.
Ugh.
So yeah, say hi to us. Say hi to us on Twitter at CGG Podcast, or at the Phantom, or at Phantom Fellows. Email us, mail at classicgamersguild.com. We haven't gotten an email in a while, friends. So, throw one out there and say, hey, I'm going to play Blade Runner now,
Oy
or
vey,
I
with the
did play
Jewish
Blade
guilt.
Runner.
Hey, I'm just saying, no emails lately.
Find us on Facebook. We're a page, we're a group, Classic Gamers Guild. We're also on Instagram and YouTube as CGG Podcast. So YouTube, amazingly enough, gets a couple of views. I think we got 19 on our last episode. So thanks. Really appreciate you guys making it out there. And thanks for listening.
You just do whatever you want to do, is the way. But of all those things, don't do a murder. I mean, you gotta loosen your jaw up if you're gonna talk Southern. Yeah.
All right.
I
Okay.
yeah. Now tune the banjo. How y'all doing today? There you go.
Okay, you ready?
Willie's Wet Walrus. I'm ready.
Hey there. Thank you for joining.